failure to get adequate health, you see. Sort of sad. I mean, this whole thing is a balance between economy and health. You know what I mean? Life over the economy, and that's what a lot of these politicians are weighing, which doesn't seem to be something that should ever be considered, but that's what they're considering.
Right.
Wow, we're having I don't know why it's not going live. Hold 1 second. Links are in.
It's recording.
Yeah, I started the recording.
This is we've had this problem.
There we go.
Here we go.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our Power Podcast All-Star Live Stream Series. I'm your host, co-host, Brother Bedford, and we want to welcome you to tonight's live stream. I'm extremely excited about tonight, so excited that we couldn't get on in time. So pardon the tardiness as we were getting everything together. But while we're waiting on everybody to get on, what I want you to do is go ahead and below, just go ahead and type your name and where you're from, and let us know your questions. Put them in the comment section, because we have an evening to really share some powerful insight from Dr. Michael V. Roberts and Dr. George C. Fraser with you this evening. What I need you to do is two things real quick before I turn it over to Dr. Fraser to take us further into tonight's podcast. I need you to go ahead and follow Dr. Fraser's fan page. We need you to like it, love it, and follow it. And in that way, you'll get notifications when we're going live with all of the future podcasts, as well as all of Dr. Fraser's other upcoming events and his posts. You'll get that type of insight just by following the page. I also want you to go to www.newblackpower.com. And if you give me your name and email, I'll make sure that you don't miss any of the podcasts, past or future podcasts that are coming up. We've just been having a phenomenal time. We know that this is an interesting time. Everyone is in their homes or in their places of shelter, and they're absorbing this information. And the information or the emails that I've been receiving have just been phenomenal. Everyone has just been saying this has been awesome. Everybody's saying this has been entertaining. But the last few emails have been stating how powerful this is and how educational these podcasts have been. And so I hope and pray that we are giving you some insight to keep you entertained, but at the same time, we hope that you're taking these golden nuggets and really getting ready to come up out of this quarantine much better, much more enlightened, and much more powerful to take your life and your career and your family to the next level. So with that said, I'm getting ready to turn it over to the father of the networking movement, the networking conversation in Black America, 30 plus years of working in our community to helping us to build effective relationships, 6 best-selling books on the topic of networking and building effective relationships, the chairman and CEO of Fraser Nation, the founder of the Power Networking Conference, and I can go on and on with all of the awards and accolades that Dr. Fraser has received, but you should Google him, and you should just go ahead and follow the page to get all of that information. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Dr. George C. Fraser.
Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? Hope you're holding on, staying healthy, social distancing, washing your hands, doing all the things to keep us alive and healthy. We'll deal with the economy tonight. Tonight we have a very special guest. We always put a "the" every time we talk about Dr. Michael V. Roberts, the Michael V. Roberts. Mike and I have been good friends for a long, long time. And you talk about a brother that is well decorated, that brings not only experience, but wisdom to the table of business, who has found a way from relatively humble beginnings to do at least $1 billion+ in business, and has a net worth that, you know, we don't want to discuss, because we don't want to discourage anybody, because you too have the potential to do what he has done. He has an illustrious resume. You can Google him. The one that I drew down and printed out is 5 pages long, so that would take the equivalent of the entire hour to do it any justice. But just to give you sort of a 30,000-foot view of this brother, Michael Roberts is an incredible example of a creative and innovative businessman who is a conscious and woke brother. I was just reading in his resume that when he graduated, or as he was in law school, before he graduated, he was selling dashikis while he was in law school. That's how conscious he was. Born in 1948, so he's 3 years younger than I am. As you know, tomorrow I will celebrate my 75th birthday. And that is a celebration. That is a milestone. I was going to have a big party, but that's out, obviously. Michael has a very, very interesting background. Graduated from a newly integrated high school, Northwest High School in St. Louis, and then he went from there to community college, and then he went there to Linwood University. We earned a Bachelor of Science degree, and throughout his matriculation, Michael earned some side money selling African dashikis and shirts and African imports to stores. So he was a distributor. He was sort of a middleman. He graduated from St. Louis University and went on to study law, and he earned his JD. And then him and his brother, incredible, sort of quiet young man, started Roberts and Roberts Associates, and they started their own law firm. And I believe all of his children, 4 children, I believe they all have law degrees. So you have a family of lawyers. He purchased real estate in his neighborhood to help save the neighborhood and to create work and jobs for people in the neighborhood. He has kept his corporate headquarters. He's kept his beautiful home, all of that in the neighborhood. He's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm Phi Beta Sigma, but you know, Kappa Alpha Psi, they're some good brothers. They're doing some significant things. He went on to get on the Black Enterprise Top 100 Industrial and Service Company list back in the year 2000. He's just, I've always called Michael an intellectual provocateur. He is always thinking about the future. He's really one of our great futurists, and you'll pick that up in the conversation that we will have this evening. I mean, he has some ideas, he has some insights, he has some suggestions, and listen up. Take out a pad and take notes, because he's only going to say it one time. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce to some, and of course, invite others who know Michael, who's been touched by him in the many speeches. He crisscrosses the country, if not the world. He's just returning from Africa, as I was last year. He's now an installed chief in an African village. And I just love talking to him. He's always a fascinating conversation. Michael, welcome to our first All-Star podcast. It's so good to have you. So good to see you. Tell us where you are at the moment, and then I want to start with my standard question.
George, it's indeed a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be with you. We've been all over the country sharing information and knowledge, and And it's just great to see a man of such great wisdom to take the time to set up these podcasts for so many of us who need to hear information. We're sitting at home, many people, and just trying to determine, what's next out here. I'm in Detroit. I'm actually at the Roberts Riverwalk Hotel. Here I'm getting quite a few things done. I'm decided that this is a smart move to be here to watch over the property because it is closed, and we're able to get some necessary fixes done while here in Detroit. And it's interesting because Detroit is a hot spot for the COVID-19. And so it's just been a very interesting experience. Frankly, I think that, how can I say this best? We are in a defining moment. I like to call it a stress test, especially for us of the African descent. And one of the things that I really want us to be mindful of is you may feel like you're down, but one of the things we have to be and you may just find yourself not looking at the changes that are taking place and becoming a part of those changes, because frankly, change is inevitable. Either you will control the change or change will control you. So we are in the middle of this terrible moment with this virus that's hurting so many and killing so many. But there's one basic consideration right now, and that is, notwithstanding our health issue, we have an economy that we have to live in and be a part of the recovery. And so there springs some tremendous opportunities. So I'm a very optimistic person when it comes to us as African Americans being resourceful, innovative, and becoming true champions of the future.
Right. Well, you actually answered the first question I've asked all the guests. What are we learning as Black people from this virus, and what do you think perhaps we may be missing from this pandemic and from this once in a 100-year event?
Well, yes, as I said, it's a moment of innovation. It's a time when people have to consider a new direction in their life as it relates to their business. Their jobs are going to be perhaps there when they get back. They need to look at, how can I become more resourceful, especially now that we're in this serious digital age that's creating a really interesting opportunity to take a hard look at the wealth gap that exists out here and how can we begin to close that gap.
We were talking right before the broadcast went live about PPP money. And I asked you candidly, had you applied? And then you said, yes, you had. And you said you not only have you applied, but you've already received your PPP money. I don't know if you are an exception to the rule as it relates to Black businesses getting money, but help us understand what you did, how you did it, what should we be focused on in getting, our fair share, because it hasn't been that way based on all the politics and all of the scuttlebutt that is going on around.
Well, for those who don't know, PPP stands for Payroll Protection of Program. And the payroll protection allows for anyone who has a company, an LLC, a corporation. And here's the important part. You could be an independent contractor or a sole proprietor, which means that if you do hair, or if you cut grass, or if you do any services for anyone, you're actually a sole proprietor. This is a loan that is made available through a banking institution of some type. You're a bank or a broker bank that can lead you through it. It's just a 2-page application. You can find it by going to SBA.com. or sdba.gov, I guess it is, and look for the PPP coronavirus or the CARES program is what they also call it. Now, let me point out something. It's a very, very simple program. You don't have to have good credit. You can have no credit. You can have bad credit, because that's not one of the issues here. The purpose is to get money into the hands of employers, and if you're self-employed, into your hands as well. And it's done, the math on it is they take the last 12 months of your existence, they average what your income was for a given month, or your payroll was for over the 12 months divided by 12 and for a 1 month period. So let's be hypothetical. Let's assume that your payroll is $10,000 a month. You then take that and multiply it times 2.5. So your application is now it would be $30,000 that you would be applying for. Now, if you receive that, you're able to use all of that money, 75% of it, for your payroll to get your employees back, pay yourself, or whatever that qualification was that you put in the form. 25% of that money can be used to pay for your rent. It can be used to pay a mortgage interest, and it can be used to pay your utilities. Now, understand, once that money is used over about a 8-week period, you go back to your bank, and that loan is forgivable. Let me repeat that. That means that you have no loan anymore. It's forgivable. So that's basically a grant. But you want to keep your books correct. You want to make sure that your payroll is in order. And when you do that, when it's time for you to go back in, and by the way, even if you kept the money, it's a 1% per annum interest rate. And there's no guarantees, no personal signatures. Now, there are loan documents that your bank will ask for from you at the point that they approve you, and they send it to the SBA for approval. Once that approval at SBA, meaning SBA is ready to fund that amount of money and fund that specific proposal, then the signatures will go on as a signature bank, as a bank loan, but it's really not a loan per se. It's really a way of having a grant to you. But your bank will probably require you to set up a new account with them so that that funding from the SBA will go to that account. And once it hits, it's yours. So I urge people to take a look at that. And again, you don't have to be a big corporation. In fact, you can be just you. And whatever you do to provide applying for the PPP financings. Great. I hope I was clear on how that works.
Yeah. No, good. That's good. We got to keep repeating it. And in some ways, it's a little bit frustrating, the long lines, but you have to persist. You have to wait. You have to just persist, and it will happen. Just be positive.
George, let me just indicate, excuse me, George, let me just say this. All of this is going to be done by telephone and over your computer. Your forms will be sent into your bank because the banks aren't going to be open in terms of people walking in. So once you get it done, you're in the queue, and it's a first come, first serve. That's why you hear them talk about the first level of funding was eaten up very quickly. It was eaten up by a lot of relationships that bankers had with bigger companies. They took care of them first. Thanks to Congresswoman Maxine Waters, she's made it a point, because she's over banking in Congress, to make certain that a percentage of this, I think it was over 60 billion, went to community banks who have a lot more hands-on contact, and credit unions that have hands-on contact with African Americans. So, kudos to Maxine Waters, because she's chairman of that committee and was able to exert her influence.
Right.
So it is a relationship thing that you have to do with the bank, but it's time for you to do that. If you've never done it, by the way, it doesn't have to be the bank you you've done business with. It could be any bank, any new, you can establish a new relationship and go after it. But it's better if you have some relationship with one of the bankers that maybe at least you just deposit or cash your check or wherever you might be.
You there, Michael?
Yeah, I'm here, but I couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Somehow or another, the line is not what it needs to be. You're stopping and from there. I mean, we're okay here, but you're in a sense going in and out. But for the most part, it's good. Let's switch to another subject. Years ago, you started talking to me about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And maybe one of the most asked questions on my circuit of speaking is what my thoughts were about cryptocurrency. Am I involved in it? What do I think? Is it the future? And so I've been doing a lot of reading about it. You've been talking to me about it. You are a cryptocurrency or a miner of cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And I bought a book about 2 weeks ago. I meant to bring it with me and for everybody to see. This is a wonderful book. Can you see it? It is The Life After Google. Life After Google by George Gilder, who is a futurist. Life After Google, The Fall of Big Data and the Rise of the Blockchain Economy. So I think it's inevitable. I don't know if I'll be alive when it becomes the currency of the world. We know that Facebook is looking at developing its own cryptocurrency. China, as you told me earlier today, is looking at it. I want you to unpack that for us and help us understand ways in which we can exploit that, get involved in that. I'm doing something, I'm dabbling in it now myself. A very low risk kind of venture, but I need to get my feet wet in it. And talk us through that. I mean, you have a lot of experience in it, and you are a blockchain miner. I mean, that's a whole nother. When I say miner, that's like in mining gold and mining diamonds. Dr. Michael V. Roberts is a miner in blockchain.
Bitcoins,
so
yeah.
Bitcoins, right? But you're using blockchain, right?
Yeah, blockchain is the form by which the currency exchanges hands through a blockchain methodology. Let me attempt to start with this concept. First of all, what is currency? Historically, currency relates to the bartering between two people, okay? Back in the day, it might have been, I have a barrel of corn and you have some chickens, and we're going to exchange. So my currency back then was corn, your currency were chickens. And then over time, the humans began to accept rocks, or what I just call it gold and silver currency. It was then created physical coins at that point. And it's migrated all the way up to what we call fiat money now, which is the paper money that we see getting printed by the Treasury. Money all over the world is the full faith and credit of those countries. As a result, it becomes a type of fungible form of currency, in that it may be worth, it may not be worth anything if the country is, in a depressed state. And we've seen some of that in some countries out here. So 23 million Bitcoins were created by an anonymous guy in I believe China, and it was only that many. And the concept was to create a currency that can be global, and based on the same standard worldwide. So in the future, instead of having dollars and in one country or another, these cryptocurrencies, we call them, of course, were created. Now there are thousands of them. The most notable, of course, are the exchange. So in the world of being able to make the exchanges take place, if you look at how, if I want to buy some property in Singapore, today I can look online and evaluate whether or not you own the property and what's the history of that property. And at the same time, you can evaluate me. And then we can exchange, you can exchange the ownership of the property, and I can exchange my Bitcoins to you. And by doing that, we've eliminated who? Bankers, we've eliminated lawyers, we've eliminated people who are involved in running titles. So what's happened is blockchain is this futuristic concept that basically defines everything on the planet, every piece of property, every person and their history, all the documents that may exist at a city hall. When you're born, a blockchain data will be started on you. And a blockchain data will stack information, and it's immutable, meaning that it cannot be hacked. It cannot be hacked because there's thousands of other computers holding the exact same data. And if someone were to try to take one of your lines out of your blockchain, the others would immediately fill that data and keep it pure. So it's a level of trust, which is a part of the whole concept of blockchain. And it's the ability to take the Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoins aren't coins. People have to realize that. Bitcoins it's a algorithm or a number. And you can break that number up into pieces, just like you could take a dollar bill and say, okay, I have a dollar bill, but I also have 3 pennies or a nickel or a quarter. So you can break it up into it's .888000008 zeros to create the percentage of what a Bitcoin is worth. Now, it gets a little complicated when I say that, but my bottom line, okay, George, let's assume you own 1 share of General Motors stock, okay? Back in the day, you actually had a certificate, right? But today, you just have a number, and you probably don't even see it because your broker is sitting there with it. But that's what it is. It's a number that's assigned to your stock. So in the case of your Bitcoin, it's a number assigned to your Bitcoin, and that number can be broken up into pieces. It can be used as if it's pennies, nickels, quarters, or dimes in order to make that entire Bitcoin one solid amount. So today, if the Bitcoin today is worth, I think it was a little over $8,000. I looked at it today. 2 days ago, it was at 7,000. A few days back, it was at 4,000. And at one point, not long ago, it was at 3. But 2 years ago, it was at 19,000. One coin, one Bitcoin. Now, again, that's a number.
Michael, is it that wild volatility of cryptocurrency that really scares people? It's up and down and up and down.
It's the market, George. It's just like your stock market. You remember? I mean, not long ago, the stock market was at 20. The Dow was at 26, 27,000. Then it dropped to 18. You know, it's the same movement. Only it has big swings. I think it was in December of 2017 or 18, where because there's only 23 million of them, and there aren't going to be any more, it's projected that once everybody embraces this concept, that at some point, one Bitcoin may be worth $100,000. There are those who argue that it may be worth $1 million. One coin. So, it's just like saying, okay, well, I'm going to buy one share of Google when it first started. Let's say it was $50, and now it's $1,200. So it's a real question for people to determine if this is valuable. But let me just point out something, George, because I know it may be a little complicated for those. I suggest that people go to some TED Talks and go in and listen to other people talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, the blockchain, and become more self-educated. Because in the time that we have here, we can't go into a deep dive on what this is all about. I do want to say that, because you brought it up as an investment, everyone in the country pretty much is going to receive $1,200 as part of the stimulant money. And I know that you and Dr. Jamal Bryant spoke about the concept of maybe 20 of the 40 million Black people that are in the United States. If just half of them took that money and made an investment into a Black business, that would be roughly $24 billion that can go into the Black businesses. Now, that's with the B. So if you take all 30 or 40 million of us and multiply that times $1,200, you can see what has happened within about a 3-week period in the Black community. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I recommend to people is take some of the money and write down your credit card, pay off your credit cards. Why do I say that? Because if you can do that, your money hasn't gone any place, you can still use it. And because we're going to be in the future in a form of currency that is going to be more virtual and digital, instead of letting your credit card sit there accruing 18 or 21% interest, pay them off now so you don't get hit on the back end. Again, you can use that credit card just like you could use that cash. Just use it to write down. That's my first recommendation. I'd also recommend you looking into real estate as a possible investment, because everyone's going to need a place to live, and businesses will be different, but there will be opportunities as a result of take place as well. I want people to look at the stock market. The stock market is an interesting place to invest, but be mindful that the stock market is you don't have to go pretend like you know how to buy stock. Okay. My analogy would be this. I know how to play basketball, but I'm not going to be able to play in the NBA. All right. I can't go to the Olympics, though I can play basketball. Right now. So therefore, let's choose a professional to help manage. And then if you're going to buy some stock, buy some solid stock, blue chips preferably, that pay some type of dividend. Why? Because they have historically had good business management, senior level people who know what they're doing. They know how to navigate through rough times, and they've proven that time and time again. So therefore, you are invested and you are protected. And then this last one is back to cryptocurrency. Maybe take a little bit and invest in a Bitcoin or one of the Ethereums or one of the other ones, but I would try to stay with the ones that have some history and protect your money. That's found money. That's $1,200. Let's be smart about it. And for example, I was telling people my book Action Has No Season 2.0. I did a whole chapter on investing in cryptocurrencies. I call it watering to cryptocurrency. And I tell people, look, if you're going to buy my book, buy it from a Black bookstore. You can get it at Amazon, of course, too. But I'm just saying, use your money wisely and invest as much. If you're going to spend money, let's spend it with where the money can turn over within our community.
Right, right. In your mind, the future of business, the future of jobs, where is that? If we were to invest our time, talent, and treasure in a business with a growing potential, with a long-term future, or if we were going to invest our education to seek a job, what are some of the categories you think we should be looking at? And remember, we had a town hall meeting at the Power Networking Conference, and Dr. Michael Roberts is one of our tenured faculty members at the Power Networking Conference. Where should we be looking? Where does the future lie in business and jobs for Black people in particular?
Well, I think that the first thing we have to recognize is the changes that are taking place, and as a result of where we all are today, when we sort of come out of this cave, there's going to be a very interesting new dynamic that's going to take place. I spoke to 300 high school students just last year in White Plains, New York. I'm sorry, just a few months ago, White Plains, New York. And I said to them, hey, listen, if you've got anyone who's around the age of 2, like my grandson or some of the or some of my other grandkids in that lower age group, they will probably not know how to drive a car by the time they're 16. They will command a car because autonomous cars will be everywhere. We've already seen the movement of electric cars. We're seeing that robotics and artificial intelligence is really beginning to shape our future. And anyone who has a job that is repetitive in nature, meaning you do the same thing over and over, I'm predicting by 2030, 2035, more than 50% of the jobs that Black people have today will be gone. And as a result of that, we have to look at where are the newer opportunities that will be emerging. And there are going to be many. There's always new opportunities. When people were picking cotton and the cotton gin was invented and it moved a lot of people out of business, a lot of them headed up here to Detroit because at the same time, there was this automobile industry that was beginning to emerge, and folks came from the South to find jobs related to that. Now, the same jobs that they had assembling cars are now assembled by robotic arms. But who's making those robots, and who's determining who's fixing them when they need to be repaired, and so on and so forth? We as humans will have an interesting change in our lifestyle. We're going to see nanochips that will go into our body that's going to be able to detect high blood pressure, diabetes. It'll determine, your heart rate and your temperature. And in the future, these chips that will go in to send signals to your RoboDoc, because your RoboDoc will be able to have the type of information on you. So in the future, your RoboDoc will pick up the indication that you're having a high blood pressure issue. The RoboDoc will then prescribe the medicine and communicate to the robo-pharmacist, who will then pull the necessary drugs, and then they will call on the drone company to deliver it to your house. So what have I just eliminated? I've eliminated doctors per se, pharmacists per se, and even those Uber drivers who used to bring, could bring Uber Eats to you. It's going to be a virtual world that's going to change. We've seen the virtual glasses that people wear, and they can suddenly feel that they're skiing or skydiving. Well, imagine a chip that'll go into the back of your brain that will allow you to close your eyes. And because of that chip, it'll be just like your cell phone. It'll be just like this cell phone. The cell phone has more data capability than NASA had when it sent a man to the moon. Now imagine that phone having a chip reduced to the size of a nanochip, about the size of a coffee grain. They'll actually go into your brain and be able to provide you with infinite knowledge. Now, the dark side of this is what's going to happen when you get these brain hackers, who's going to suddenly be able to put you in a crazy position where you're doing things and you have no clue that you're doing it. And these are the worries. Now, remember that although you might be a cyborg, you might be, at what point does a human become sort of a robot in a sense? That the human can do things that robots will never be able to do. Even quantum computing, which allows for computers to diagnose and evaluate at quantum speed, which is maybe 1 million times faster than our computers as we know them today. That data capability will be available, and so many things will change as a result of that in our lifestyle and who we are and what we'll do. Now, there are many, many jobs that'll take place, but as I said, with the human brain, the robot can't love, it can't hate, it can't find itself being creative as it relates to art. It can emulate, but it cannot create. So in the future, I think what we're going to see are those of us who will be able to build these types of instruments, manage them. There will always be smaller jobs available. Entertainment will change. We're going to see entertainers or movies with people, but in the backdrop, it'll look like they could be, in the will open your door, or will pay a bill, or you'll be able to use it like a credit card. You just flash it, and all of this will be in the future. And it's very spooky, but if you're going to be a capitalist and a social capitalist, meaning you're going to get back to being able to make a lot of money and succeed, you're going to have to be ready things and try to make sure that the you and I talked about earlier, and I asked the question, what is the American dream today?
Yeah.
What is the American dream?
What is the American dream? From your perspective, what is that? And what is it for us?
Well, it was always, having a nice house, having a nice position, and being able to feed your family. I think that's probably the basic concept. But, 40% of the people in this country spend 5.5 times more on the education of their children than 60%. Which means that 40% will continue to, of more educated children, will continue to be an upper class because they will be better at being innovative. It's just that, well, how are we going to the world of technology, the way things can occur, minds around it and pursue it and actually take action behind it. I think we'll find ourselves able to close that wealth gap very quickly in a short period of time in this digital age, or it will widen. I saw something the other day that said that 20% of the wealthiest people in America has gained between 10 and 20% more wealth under this president, Trump, than in the past because of his tax cuts and the way in which he's doing business. However, as a result of what's going on in the market and what's happening out here, this is a very interesting time in history, and this is when great wealth can emerge as we look at this so-called new normal. And if we're a part of it, and we make ourselves part of the championship components, that our minds are there as champions to win. If we eliminate fear and we go for it, I mean, really go for it, we'll be okay. And we have to blend our relationship back with Africa. That's another topic, I'm sure. But Africa is getting fed up with the Chinese coming over there. They're getting fed up with them ripping and taking off things, and just kind of like the way the Europeans used to do, only even worse. They're looking for those of us in and I can see that this could be a real interesting component for those of us in the diaspora, those of us who are African American, to really get more engaged in the opportunities that exist abroad, and not just get locked into the corner grocery store mentality.
Yeah, I gave a talk before COVID-19, and I said to Black folk, regardless of the isms in this country, and there are plenty of isms, there is unlimited opportunity. That is really not the challenge. The challenge is not lack of opportunity. The challenge is capacity, that we must spend the 21st century building our capacity to take advantage of the enormous opportunities out here. And we know, because we travel to the continent, I see some of the greatest opportunities on the continent of Africa. No question about that. The intellectual capital needs for Africa to fully develop itself and to do the vertical integration and the mining of their own resources is enormous. And so we have to be about building our capacity. But where will the next billionaires come from? Specifically for us, we know that categorically the top 10 billionaires over the last 20 years have come out of the technology industry. Will it still be in the technology industry in the next 20 or 30 years, or would it be a subset of that technology industry? The internet was the huge play when Zuckerberg made billions, and Sergey and with Google made billions, and Amazon made. Where will the billions be made?
Well, recognizing that this is a defining moment for we as African Americans. We are actually involved, believe it or not, in the middle of a stress test. And how do we come out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way in which we come out of it and to create that path forward that you're referring to, George, is for us to begin to create incubator technology centers in the inner city urban areas, because it's going to be our young children who are gamers right now. They're playing these games. You know that the gaming industry right now is at $140 billion of worth. And by the end of this year, it's supposed to be up to $150 billion. That's the gaming industry. That's the industry where there's about 20 billion people. I'm sorry, not 20 billion. There's over 2 billion people who's involved in this worldwide, because this is the concept of these video games and gaming.
It's bigger than the movie industry, isn't
it? Huge. And let me add that in the future, one, it's going to be perhaps an Olympic sport, and two, it's going to be in Vegas, because gaming is going to become gambling. And that's going to be what's going to save Vegas in these gaming competitions. And now what we're seeing are celebrities, even like a Snoop Dogg, who has a team. Magic has a team they have these teams that are competing. It's huge. And I know a lot of us are sleeping. We don't see it, but the young people do. So what if we begin to create new games for the gaming industry in the future? What if we're able to buy into the whole industry of the gaming industry and take control over it at this stage early on? I think that the way to do that is for us to create these innovative these centers in our urban areas, give young people a chance to come in. I call them the backpack kids because basically they have a laptop and it's in their backpack and that's their office. But what if we gave them the environment that other kids around the country and young people are getting, where they can interface with technology people? We can, I'm sure, have some of the bigger companies sponsor some of these venues as well. Have them come in, and we can have. There's so much that could take place in giving these kids a chance to exchange ideas, create the next viable app, create the next game, and those games can make those billionaires. But we have to give them the environment to do it now. I mean, we can't just talk about it. I want people to go out and look at, when we come out of this situation, how can we find a center? It could be at a church. They're not using those churches, not 7 days out of the week. You know, it could be, you know, centers for kids to come and exchange ideas. And you can get the chief intelligence officers from companies at all levels to come and give speeches and give lectures to kids. I think that we can see the innovation taking place right in our communities and neighborhoods. We've always been the most resourceful folks on the planet. Right. So all I'm saying is, let's look at it now in terms of the need. And I dare say that, you know, enhancing the environment of technology, the digital world, will be the next easy, low-hanging fruit, frankly, for us to see the making of Black billionaires.
You posed an interesting question on a panel discussion I was watching. You were on it, and the question was, do we have heroes today?
Right.
And what is the difference between our heroes and our icons? Unpack
exactly.
That. Yeah.
Well, that's something that you know, historically we have looked to success stories in sports and in the entertainment world, and in some way or another, the question becomes: are those really heroes? They're champions in their own sport, but are they true heroes? Heroes are frequently people who give up their treasure, their life, their reputation for the good of our community. I had a discussion just last night with a colleague here who debated me as to who he thought was a hero. So he spoke to Jay-Z as a hero because he was a rapper and he came up, you know, from the hood and made his way, and he was able to put himself in a position with the NFL. And I said, well, that's nice, but how is that a hero? Because he's more of an icon. It's like Oprah is an icon. These are people who have established themselves for themselves, and they may be somewhat of an example, but the question is, where, you know, how do you compare that, for example, with a Colin Kaepernick, who I consider more like a hero to me? Here's a guy who, and not just because he's a Kappa, by the way, but here's a guy who gave up a tremendous, at a tremendous risk, gave up a career in football to drop a knee to speak to the issue of police brutality, and has, you know, suffered for it to some degree. You know, Martin Luther King gave up his life. He was a hero. So there's a difference between, you know, what I've been defining as a hero today And I think it's a dialogue I'd like for us in our community to begin to express. You know, there's a lot of heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be interesting for us to begin to lift our heroes and not just the icons, who I consider to be more the people who are the entertainers and the athletes. They're nice and they're successful. But we have to look at, I mean, you're a hero, Josh. I mean, we have to look at how do we take heroes and begin to embrace them and let them know that we really do appreciate it. Now, we're seeing the word heroes being used by doctors and nurses and first responders. And they are heroes because they are laying down their lives in many ways to protect people. So I was just trying to take a moment and think, well, why don't we try to look at that within the concept and confine of the Black community, and maybe just make that sort of a dialogue that can float out there for a while and begin to identify. And then when we see those great heroes and we're being able to speak to them, let's laud them. Let's give them a recognition and show our appreciation for what they did and what they continue to represent in our community. If we don't do more of that, our kids will never see true heroes.
Yes.
Now, the reality is there's a great song that says, when it's all said and done, the hero is inside of you.
Yeah.
And that is what I think we have to recognize as Black folks. We're already heroes because the hero is inside of you. So make yourself perceive yourself as a hero. And I think that it will lift the confidence and the self-respect that we need so desperately within our own community.
Yeah. Brother Bedford, if there are any questions, get them organized and lined up. I've got one final question for Dr. Roberts. We're at the 7:58 hour. We're going to go over a little bit because we started a little bit late. So we promised folks a rich hour, so it will go over just a little bit. But you've completed Action Has No Season 2.0. Your first book was a huge hit. You've come back around. You're taking another swing. Unpack what message at the end of the day, what message you want to leave in that book. What are you saying that was perhaps different than what you said in Action Has No Season in 1.0?
Well, Action Has No Season subtitle was The Secrets and Strategies to Gaining Wealth and Authority. And not only did I speak my philosophy in business, but I also drafted and showed anecdotal support of the nearly 100 businesses that I developed and the close to 11,000 people that I've employed over my years, 99% of which were Black, having owned 12 TV stations with my brother, 14 hotels, building a wireless phone company, and taking it public, the only Black to have ever built a phone company, literally, and took it public, and a score of other businesses. And I coined a word in there, it's the actionaire. It's one who takes their ideas, their dreams, their vision, and their passion, and they pursue them with courage and confidence and bravado. So in Action Has No Season 2.0, its subtitle is How the Actionaire Develops All Possibilities. All possibilities. What is your mindset? How do you deal with situations from time to time? It's written in a fashion where it's almost like a textbook because it does a chapter, then it asks questions and leaves lines for you to fill in. It's a very existential approach for me because what I try to do is put a mirror in front of you and have you look at yourself in the context of the words that I deliver, so that you can begin to determine, is this who I really see myself as being, and what do I need to do to make the change? I state in there, of course, that we all have dreams. All of us have many dreams. And of course, the big question is, well, what do you do when you have a dream? The first thing you do is you wake up, then you sit up, and then you stand up. And a lot of our family members will tell us, don't go after being in business. Uncle Tyrone tried to do that. We know what happened to him. Well, even within our families, after we wake up, sit up, stand up, we have to tell our own family sometimes to shut up and get out of your way, because only you can fulfill your dreams. So in this book, I give you a list of concepts to fall behind and work off of, so that you can create the mindset to go after all the possibilities that exist out here for you.
Awesome. Brother Bedford, are there any burning questions that we need to address?
Well, I think we have one or two
Do
questions.
you have one as well?
We have one or two, two questions in the
Okay.
queue, but yeah, I do have a question that I'd like to ask Dr. Roberts. First, I do know that the internet connection, I know by the water right there by Canada, I know that Wi-Fi sometimes can go in and out when you're right there by the water. So I know we had a few people asking about the connection and installing. So just want to kind of let them know a little bit about that and why that was happening. But my question to you before I get into the other question, Dr. Robert, we were together about a year ago, and you've spoken to it today about the futurist concepts, the different things that are going to be taking place in the future. So my question to you is, what are the requirements in terms of education for us to start moving in that direction? Considering a lot of people are trapped in traditional education, you're giving us a lot of great concepts to look forward to. What type of educational fields should we start pursuing and pushing our children into if we're to accomplish those things?
Well, of course, the concept of science, technology, engineering, and math, acronym STEM, is something that I think we really want our kids to prosecute and prosecute quickly. I think that they should be much more engaged in looking. I think as adults, I mentioned this before, some of the shortcuts to becoming more informed is through some of the TED Talks. I know I'm on YouTube pretty heavily, George is as well, and take a listen to some of the speeches that you may hear from time to time, and listen to some of these other futurists. You'll hear a lot of us saying the same thing, but in different ways. So I want people to really embrace science, technology, engineering, and math. Even though all four of my kids did go to law school, they're all engaged in one way or another in understanding the entrepreneurial side of being connected to the digital environment that we are living in.
Okay, great. One last question, George, before I hand it back over to you. Marilyn asked, she mentioned all of the investment recommendations that you were speaking about earlier. And she asked, what do you think about the sites, the smaller sites such as Robinhood to do small investing?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Say it again.
She mentioned the recommendations that you were giving earlier about investing. And so she wanted to know, what is your recommendation, or what do you think about some of the smaller sites like Robinhood that helps people with investing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good point, and sometimes we are limited in terms of our numbers and what we have from a capability standpoint. Look, people need to be able to invest at the level in which they are, so to speak. So maybe if they can be, supportive of people who are trying to break out and they need a small amount of assistance, which could yield bigger profits for the investor, I would certainly consider it. We in one way or another need to have something that is going to that's going to allow us to better ourselves. Now, here's an example of what we can do. I'm sorry, back to the education side, please. Harvard University is offering free courses, free, in a variety of business areas. And you can pretty much go online, track your way through the maze and find exactly how to get those courses. And they actually issue certificates. So this is free of charge. So there are schools that may have, similar to Harvard, who may be doing some of the same things right now, especially, you know, when so many of us are at home and trying to determine how to better ourselves. This is a great time to study up and see what's going on. And as it relates to the small investment, you know, it is very critical for you to be, for whoever can do that, to make those investments if they feel that the model or the business plan, and more importantly, the integrity of the person doing making the offering for you to invest as a small investor, you know, study it carefully, but don't turn your back on it.
Mhm.
That's all we have right now, George, in terms of questions.
Okay, Michael, it's always a joy just to sort of sit at the feet of a master, a futurist, a brother that has not only talked the talk, but walked the walk. As the old saying goes, you can live a better sermon than you can preach. And you have not only preached a great sermon, but you have modeled a great sermon and you've lived a great sermon. It's always an honor to have you at the Power Networking Conference. Thank you again for joining us, October the 14th through the 17th. Michael is a typical faculty member who not only comes to the conference early, but he stays. He stays, so he's there. He's fully accessible. He's coaching every minute of every day. People are on him and people are asking him questions. And so join us. And as you know, at each of our podcasts, we have sort of a little lottery where we do an extreme deal for 5 people who are watching tonight, the first 5. So it's a special package that we have crafted and put together for those of you who are smart enough to join us there's 30 of these, by the way. I think we're into our 3rd week. And Saturday is the final podcast for this week, and that is Wendy Muhammad,
Yes.
who is big time in the healthcare industry, bad sister. She has her own radio program on Radio 1. Awesome. And it's about time we had another woman on too, as well. And we've got more. But the special offer that I want to put out there again, for those of you who have been chiming in on the offers, but perhaps a little bit too late. As you know, we only limit it to the first 5 people. And the offer is to attend the Power Networking Conference, October the 14th through the 17th. Dr. Michael Roberts will be there. Dr. Randall Pinkett, who was on early on Tuesday, will be there. Wendy Muhammad, who will be on Saturday, will be there. And you can take a deeper dive and into some of the things that, because we have a limited amount of time tonight, but we'll have 96 hours during the Power Networking Conference. The conference is in Houston, Texas at the Hilton of America's, a beautiful 5-star hotel. Featuring Boyce Watkins will be with us this year, as well as a very special guest, Dr. Julius Garvey. Dr. Julius Garvey, who's a former surgeon and now retired, is the son of Marcus Garvey, and we will be giving Dr. Julius Garvey the first international Marcus Mosiah Garvey Award. So his son will get it because apples don't fall too far from the tree. But this is an incredible brother, and you need to meet him, and you need to hear him. So Dr. Julius Garvey will be there. A full registration at the conference is $1,500 for an adult registration and a student registration, and we encourage you to bring a student, 17 to 25 college-age student, so they could sit at the feet of a master. And this is an immersive conference, and I promise you that anybody that spends 4 days from 7 o'clock in the morning to 12 midnight learning, because we're a training conference focusing on only two things: business and money, where economics will become the new black power. You'll want to be there. You want to immerse yourself and in that kind of environment, meet some powerful people. If you met one person that could help change the trajectory of your business or your life or your profession, would that be worth $1,500? You better believe it will be, and it would be, and you'll meet more than one person. So when you, we encourage you to bring a student. A student registration is $800. That's the rack rate. The adult registration is $1,500. That's the rack rate. You add those two together, that's $2,300. So for the first people that respond tonight, our allocation for each of the podcasts is 5. You get it. You get that $2,300 package for $399. That's a $1,900 discount. You can only get it by emailing me. You can't go on the website, powernetworkconference.com. You got to email me. You email me at gfraser@frasernet.com. That's gfraser, F-R-A-S as in Sam, E-R, @frasernet.com. In the subject line, say Amen. In the body of the email, put your full name and your cell number, and I personally will call you. All right, me personally will call you, and we'll sign you up. So for the first 5, we're already at 3. For the first 5, you get that special offer, $1,900 off, $399. Come and enjoy, and 50 speakers, 50 workshops, 4 incredible meals, exhibitors, in a first-class environment, in a beautiful city. So enjoy us, and enjoy it, and enjoy us when you get there. So that's our offer. We're already, I said, at 3, and just email me if that's what you want, if you want to be a part of that and take advantage of that. Dr. Michael Roberts, I don't know what to say. I really thank you for taking time out of your busy life, man. I mean, but you know, this is what you do, and I love you for that. And you've been doing it. This is not new for you. You have raised an incredible family. You have given for your whole life back to your community. You live in the community where you were on the city council as well. You were a politician, right? At one point in time. Is it an assemblyman or alderman in St. Louis, or what? Here we call them councilmen. What do they call them in St. Louis?
Alderman. We call them aldermen.
Right. So you were an alderman. So we deeply appreciate you. If you have a closing thought, please share it with us. I have one closing thought, but I want to honor you first.
Well, thank you. I just want to say that if we consider this American dream concept that we proffered earlier tonight, perhaps the best way to put it would be for us to really have equal opportunity in this country. That would be our American dream, because if we are on a level playing field, we will excel. We will become the wealthiest and most successful people on the face of the earth, really. So let's work on making sure that the American dream becomes a reality. Let's do it through the education of our people at all levels. And let's recognize, as I said earlier, now, some of us may feel down right now, but be careful. You don't want that to be a comfort zone for you. We have to get up now, wake up, stand up, and go after our dreams and our ideas. The economy is shaky right now, and that may be exactly when we can step in and shore it up and become more successful business people and entrepreneurs. As I've said before, you've heard me say this many times, you know, what would your life be like if you could eliminate the fear of failure? First word, fear. Fear is just a mental construct that doesn't exist. You were not born with it. You only allowed it to sit into your psyche. And the second word, failure, I respectfully submit there's no such thing as failure. Why do I say that? I say that only because every day when you wake up, you're given 86,400 seconds. That's 24 hours for those math majors. Now, you may have experiences, businesses where the outcome wasn't as you would have liked, but did you gain from it? Did you benefit? Did you learn from it? And as a result, I would not call that a failure. I would call that just an experience where the outcome isn't what I've liked, but I will be able to benefit from it. So I want people to jump into their ideas. I want them to pursue it, to become actionaires, and to really, really let this world know who you are. I hope you write a book because you are a hero and you need to let people know your story. Let's get it out. Let's be safe. Let's wear our masks. Let's keep our distance. As I said the other day, and others have heard it, you can either stay 6 feet apart or you may end up 6 feet under. So let's stay together here. Let's be healthy and let's protect each other. Much love, George. Brother Bedford, so nice to see and hear from you as well. We love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too.
Thank you,
Mike.
love you. Brothers, this is my final words tonight is simply this. Life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring this to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for being with us.
And we're clear.